Next group, the second group from the 5 groups, Group 29 from Sunway College, to present their policy entitled Revitalizing Incentives and Stakeholder Engineering for Rivers, or short, RISE for Rivers. Group 29, you have the floor.
Hello? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, when you Google the phrase world's worst plastic rivers, would you be surprised to find images of the Klang River alongside those of the Yangtze and the Ganges? Would you be surprised to know that Malaysia is on track to making the UN's prediction of a global water shortage a reality by 2040? This is the painful truth. Malaysia's rivers are being choked by an enemy that sits in plain sight: municipal solid waste, or MSW. It is your Maggie cups, your plastic bottles, your dabao boxes even. Our rivers have always played an inextricable role in all of our ecosystems, our economies, sustaining the livelihoods of thousands and millions of Malaysians. 98% of all drinking water comes from rivers, and yet Malaysians are still dumping 2,200 tons of MSW into rivers on a daily basis. The Selangor state government has spent 4.4 billion in order to remove waste from a 10-kilometer stretch of the Klang River alone. Why? Because they recognize rivers as an asset. Because they recognize rivers as an asset and know that MSW pollution causes a domino effect: ocean pollution, planetary health issues, climate change, flooding, you name it, it causes it. So what now? We have to tackle the most harmful and most constant cause of pollution, which just happens to be the root cause of many planetary health issues in Malaysia at its root level, and propel Malaysia towards achieving SDG 6, 12, and 13. And today, Team Rise for Rivers will show you how.
Our RISE policy stands for Revitalizing Incentives and Stakeholder Engineering, and is a unique, multi-pronged stakeholder policy to tackle MSW pollution in rivers at its source by holding all polluting stakeholders accountable. The RISE policy is broken down into 3 main areas. First, the RISE fee that charges producers for any waste-generating product. 2, the deposit refund system that incentivizes consumers of all levels to separate their MSW at source, modeled after Germany's FAN system with a 98.4% success rate. 3, diverting all recyclable MSW to recycling centers and non-recyclables to co-processing facilities, which alone can save our nation 51.2 million ringgit annually. RISE will be revolutionary in re-engineering Malaysia's lagging MSW system and impacting the nation in 5 main areas. Financially, our policy reduces government spending on environmental rehabilitation. Environmentally, RISE prevents further river pollution and ecological damage by reducing GHG emissions. 3, socially, RISE increases awareness, particularly amongst the B40 group, and ensures water security in Malaysia. Technologically, there will be increased research and development in sustainable MSW management. And lastly, Malaysia will legally meet its relevant international obligations.
Alright, so let's compare this to the status quo. We have identified 3 main gaps in MSW management, which is incentivization, standardization, and enforcement.
How is motivating Malaysians to recycle still a thing when buyback centers have been implemented under Act 672?
Yes, buyback centers do exist, but there are so few of them scattered throughout Malaysia, in which only a scant amount of cash is actually available for consumers that deposit waste. The costs severely outweigh any tangible personal benefit that could be gained by consumers.
Then how is the lack of standardization still contributing to MSW pollution in Malaysia?
Do you know how many states in Malaysia actually mandate waste separation? The answer to that is 9. Only 9 states in Malaysia actually mandate waste separation, which is why standardization is so important. There is no assimilation of a clear-cut MSW system in our nation, and this results in an entirely inefficient and ineffective system.
So why does the status quo show that lax enforcement is still a barrier to achieving clear rivers?
Well, this is clearly evident in Malaysia's lack of advanced system. like South Korea's RFID-based tracking network that can actually track MSW flow in real time. It's impossible for local authorities to track each and every Malaysian that refuses to abide by the act. And even when caught, you could get off with a slap on the wrist. In the grand scheme, inefficient MSW management not only affects rivers, but the healthcare, tourism, manufacturing and agriculture sectors, and that's just to name a few. With the opportunity to save our 1.9 billion in MSW and 4.4 billion in river cleaning, RISE addresses all of these issues. Could you remind me how much we're losing every year in just paper and plastic waste?
268 million.
268 million, ladies and gentlemen. We are losing 268 million that can be directed to other parts of our economy. So this could be in healthcare, education, and housing.
This 268 million gives rise to the 64.3 billion we spend on public health care, which goes to treating diseases caused by water contamination. And together, let's rise for rivers and rise for Malaysia.
Hi, congratulations making your way to finals. Based on your presentation slides here, right, in terms of the tax rebates, it's rated 50% for the efficiency compared to RISE and also data transparency. Can I just understand what was the assumptions made and how did we come up with this full, half and also quarter? Thank you.
Tax rebates,
Hi there. Good teaching. And I love the energy you guys displaying on the stage. Maybe need to calm down a bit. Okay, ready for the questions? Okay, how do you come to the conclusion that Malaysia's precious rivers are dying from municipal solid waste pollution? Do you have any supporting data on that? Okay.
Alright, we'll start with that and slowly move transition to this question. So we do have proof that municipal solid waste is the most constant and most harmful towards river pollution because it's being dumped every day, 2,200 tons of MSW into our rivers. And this is constantly. And in the long term, this will severely damage our river ecosystems, and this is why we have identified that MSW pollution is the driving cause of river degradation, in contrast to other issues that usually gain light in newspapers, such as industrial pollution, which recently has seen a lot of new legislation towards. What we are trying to do here is bring to light a different issue that's been hidden in the shadows, and we are trying to create change for rivers through reducing MSW pollution.
To answer your question on why tax rebates received only 50% in terms of efficiency, although all the government has to do really is to collect taxation, and all the firm has to do now is pay like a discounted tax rate. In order to ensure that these firms qualify for these tax rebates, they have to go through a very stringent evaluation process that most firms may not want to take part in because it requires several rounds of evaluation, a review of their finances, and et cetera, and to ensure that their technology also qualifies as green. So that's to answer your question of why it's only 50% efficient. In comparison with the RISE policy, it really ensures that the burden is fairly distributed across all stakeholders, so that firms don't have to go through all of this hassle of evaluation by the government. The government doesn't have to bear all the burden of having to ensure proper waste management in Malaysia.
Elsie, can I have one more question? Yeah. Okay, thank you for your very energetic presentation. So just a quick question. So your problem statement is you want to solve the pollution in the river. So what about if you take care of the river bank? That means you take care of the river because people beside the river, mostly they are the one who throw the MSW to the river. So they don't know about this rice or whatever. What they want to do is, my house is just beside the river, and then we just throw this. So how you are going to address this attitude? Because people at this area normally maybe they are quite far from the enforcement area, so they are very far from the cities, so they are in the area of the, or correct, in the quite remote from the urban area. So what is your response to this? Thank you.
Alright, this is an issue that we have brought up in our timeline. Alright, to begin answering your question, we have installed a long timeline in place over 8 years, and in the beginning, the first 2 years of it includes campaigning, which is very important towards ensuring that the populace becomes more understandable of how RISE will function. We have planned for 4 different bins, color-coded, like the current standard, to have them sorted into paper, glass, and metals, and so on. And doing so, the campaigning part will be educating, especially a lot of these people beside the rivers, how to sort these waste in these collection points that will be very near to their neighborhood. And they are incentivized by a deposit refund system where they can go get their money back for the waste that they return to the collection center. So why even dump it into the river when you can get money back?
Essentially, we're playing on the fact that we are bringing convenience into this, because right now, even when you walk out, you don't really see much recycling bins outside of Sunway. So we are saying that by making all of this convenient for the public, it is easier for them to understand, because it's a very valid concern that the general public, especially in rural areas, don't really understand the concerns we have for the environment. So through education and convenience, that's how we actually plan to incorporate RISE into saving our rivers. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Very quickly, the policy is good, but it mentions a lot on what is returning to the government. But my question is, how much does it cost to the government? Because you're talking about a lot of technology here from developed countries. Did you do any assessment on how much this policy will cost to the government? Thanks.
Alright, I'll take the question. So what we plan here is actually to try to create a more circular model that will be in line with essentially, apologies. Yeah, this is also part of the circular model that I'm talking about right now, wherein we mentioned that the producers will be paying for the amount of waste that they are causing in their products, essentially. So this in turn, and this is being paid to the government to help manage these waste and fund this RISE policy where there's a lot of technology involved. Obviously, we can't just immediately implement all of the technology and within a few years. So we are planning for it to be over a long 8 period of time where it can be slowly implemented in the urban areas and start expanding outwards, especially in areas that are most impacted by MSW. So this is the RISE fee that we have that will be charged through the producers so that they will be held accountable and they will automatically reduce their own waste that's being produced from their own product.
Thank you very much. I think we've questions for you. Thank you very much.